The Catcher in the Rye, the coming-of-age novel, is considered by many to be a realistic representation of American adolescence since its publication on July 19, 1951. The 250-page-long story of Holden Caulfield trying to find his way on the turbulent path between childhood and adulthood takes place in less than 3 days. In today's terms, Holden can be considered a typical millennial. He's always criticizing the society and the adults around him, saying that they're not genuine. In fact, the word phony is repeated 35 times throughout the novel. For many, Holden is an unlikable character because of his obscene language and actions, which are found to be unsuitable for adolescents. And between 1960s and 80s, The Catcher in the Rye was the most censored book in American high schools and libraries. Even though innocence is a major theme in the novel, author JD Salinger's life was surrounded by controversial rumors. Until his death in 2010, he was accused of pedophilia on several occasions throughout his life. But despite the discussions and the controversy, The Catcher in the Rye is still one of the most widely read American books of all time. So the age-old question remains, should we separate art from the artist? Or is the bond between them so strong that we can't imagine one without the other?
And joining me now to discuss the novel and its cultural phenomenon is Josef Benson, the author of The Catcher in the Rye, A Cultural History. Josef, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, The Catcher in the Rye is really, as we mentioned, a cultural phenomenon. But what is it about the book that speaks to so many people in so many different generations across America and globally?
Yeah, I think initially The Catcher in the Rye, Salinger did a great job in capturing that moment in a teenager's life, particularly a boy's life. I think that the book is very male-centered. So when we talk about its popularity, I think we're mostly talking about popularity among boys or male adults. But it captures that moment in a teenager's life when he starts to question authority, institutions, adults, values that he's supposed to have. And there's that shock of recognition that readers have, that all great literature, I think, requires. And I think initially that's the reason for its popularity. I think over time, there has been kind of a wave effect due to censorship, the book being banned, 3 different assassins citing the book as inspiration, that the book has become sort of subversive or dangerous. And its popularity has grown due to that. And also Salinger's reclusiveness has also had a sort of legitimizing effect on the book that I think draws readers.
And you mentioned censorship. What was it about the book that was so frightening to authorities at the time?
Mostly parents of high school students started complaining to the school boards and also right-wing religious groups. They often cited the language in the book and also the allusions to sexuality as reasons that it ought to be banned or censored. But I think there was something else at play in that book, and that's its overall anti-establishment, anti-capitalist message that I think frightened generally the white power structure.
And as we know, Mr. Salinger was immensely private during his life. How does that tally with a book that was so successful and that's so widely read?
Salinger wrote the book while he was in World War II, engaged in some of the most important, devastating battles in that war, including Normandy, the Battle of the Bulge, Hurtgen Forest. He wrote the first half of the book during that time and the second half of the book after that time. At the conclusion of the war, Salinger was one of the first soldiers to liberate the concentration camps. And being that he was Jewish, this had a tremendous effect on him. He had a nervous breakdown right after the war, and then he finished the book. There is evidence in the book that I think pertains to these experiences, and that is this undercurrent of the protagonist Holden Caulfield and his sympathy with the powerless, whether that's James Castle, who is bullied and commits suicide, or Jane Gallagher, who Holden worries about throughout the book, worries that she was raped by his roommate Stradlater and possibly her stepfather. Now, this reclusiveness ultimately had a legitimizing effect on the book, and I think that eventually he became more popular for his reclusiveness than he did for anything that he ever wrote.
A complicated man, but a brilliant writer nonetheless. Josef Benson, thank you so much for that fantastic insight.
Thank you. It was fun.